What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the SPY, the Nasdaq, the QQQs, and the indices, breakdown what just happened today as the market actually sold off pretty hard, and why on earth we are going to likely see a bounce, in my opinion, for tomorrow. Before I break anything down about why that is, what's going on with the technicals, and etc., I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, whether it's $1 or $100, it's up to you. You're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends in just 8 hours from the time I'm recording this, so check it out before they run out. The offer is almost done. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. SPY was down 1.59% for the day, getting this sell-off. I did make a prediction that we would actually sell off a bit after the FRC news that came out. That's First Republic Bank. And then I told you all that we would likely try to see this thing hold up or maybe try to bounce a little bit and just trade sideways and maybe close a little red. Because of what happened with the banks, and also because of the fact that consumer sentiment data was coming out. I thought the market would hold up a little bit better, though, because of the fact that we have earnings coming out and we are going to see a big reaction to those. Instead, the market actually sold off even more than expected, hovering below the 5 EMA on the 1 hour time frame. And overall, we actually were down over 1.59%. So the question is, what's coming out for tomorrow? How will the market move, and can we bounce? Well, let's first look at the data. For tomorrow, we have some mortgage data coming out, durable goods data, trading data, and also crude oil data that's going to be very important. This is going to be the last crude oil day of data that's coming out until Thursday, when we have initial jobless claims and the GDP numbers. But just know that for Wednesday, make sure you watch the data very carefully. For Tuesday, which is today, we had some earnings, obviously, that came out yesterday after the market closed. Right here where my cursor is, you had First Republic Bank. This did not do very, very well overall. They did beat on some earnings, but they did end up doing horrible when it came to the amount of deposits. That's part of why the market sold off. Also, there was a decrease in consumer confidence and other factors like that. Housing numbers were not too good for today either. But anyways, what's bigger for the market is today came, obviously earnings came, they were pretty mixed. But then for Tuesday, right after the market closed, we're supposed to have Microsoft and Alphabet. They just came out. We're still waiting for the conference calls, but for now, things are looking pretty good. I say that because when you look at the numbers, Google beats on EPS, they beat on revenue by a long shot. We'll see what happens during the conference calls that's actually happening later on. I'm recording this before them. I can't record during them. But for now, it's looking pretty good. Microsoft had pretty decent reports that came out. If you look at the Xbox hardware revenue was down a little bit. Their gaming revenue was also a little down, but their Xbox content and services was up 3%, with other factors being up and others being a little down. However, if you look at the overall quarter, they beat on EPS, they beat by a long shot, a pretty nice margin on revenue, right? 53 billion versus about 51 billion being the estimate. Pretty good, pretty sweet for Microsoft, and as a result, the share price is starting to rocket. So the real question is, what's going to happen going forward? Because when we look at Microsoft, right now it's up, it's continuing to push, it's up almost 5% so far, right? Let me just show you the extended hours. It's actually approaching 300 right now. It's around 288, getting very close to 291, followed by 295, then 300. We're getting closer and closer to it. Looking good so far. And then on top of that, on top of Microsoft, we have Google. How is Google doing? Also known as Alphabet. This thing is up pretty big too, up almost 4%, approaching 110. Very important level. Let's see if these hold. I think they should hold and try to help the market bounce tomorrow. If you look at SPY, it's actually very oversold. And if you actually look at it on the 1 hour time frame and zoom out, check this out. I don't have to do a lot of zooming out. I know it's going to look small, guys. I do apologize, but it doesn't matter. What matters is what this is telling us. All right, when we look at the charts, notice something. Hold on, notice something. Look at where the RSI was back when we were at these low levels, like 390, for example, right? Even below around 405. On the 1 hour time frame, the RSI was in the 50s and the 40s. It went at the lowest into the 40s. At the very lowest, maybe like 27 was the lowest we saw it at, but typically it was above 40 for almost the entire time when we were in the 390s, 380s, and etc. Look at the hourly RSI for today. We sold off hard in a very short period of time. The RSI actually hit a low of 20 flat, reaching 34 right now. That tells me we're very oversold and we do technically have a bullish divergence. If this low ends up holding, that's what's going to matter most. If we drop a little more, we'll have to keep watching the RSI, but in my opinion, it looks like we're getting ready for a bounce. Now, why do I say that? Higher low on SPY, lower low on the RSI, lower low on the MACD. On the MACD, look at these levels. SPY was at 405. The MACD and signal line were actually a lot higher than where they are right now, meaning there's another divergence forming on the 2 hour time frame. Check this out. 2 hours, same thing. Another divergence has been forming. RSI reached a low of like 22, I believe. And it was at 27, 26. We actually hit a low in the RSI at like 20 flat, right? 23 actually. But right here, there is still technically a divergence on the 4 hour time frame. Hold on, the 4 hour time frame. It's the same thing. Another divergence forming. We're super oversold. Price is still holding on the 4 hour above the 200 EMA. Now we're starting to push up a little bit more. On the weekly time frame on SPY, notice that we do have technically a reversal candle, but there's not enough confirmation yet of us to just straight up crash. We should try to pump a little more first before anything else like that. So that's what I'm basically seeing right now. So far, I mean, big tech is holding up nicely. Good earnings. The 1 hour looks like we're about to get a crossover on the MACD. The odds favor this thing trying to go back to 409. If somehow something unexpected happens and the market crashes again, if we break below 406, watch 404. If that fails, we're just going to get very close to that 402 to 400 area. But if we're bullish, we have to break above 409. What do I think is going to happen? My prediction is we're going to retest this 409 area, maybe try to work our way slowly up to about 410 or so. Tesla had some relative strength today, did not actually sell off too hard. If we're bearish on Tesla, watch 160. If that fails, 158 to 157.5 are both important levels. If those both fail, this thing has the potential to crash all the way down to the high 140s. If Tesla is bullish, we have to break and hold 163. If we hold it, we have the potential to go to 165. Break that, then 167.5 to 170 becomes possible. What do I think Tesla's going to do? Well, in my opinion, I think it's likely going to try to bounce tomorrow and get back above 163, maybe even testing 165. For Coinbase, this thing bounced very similar to what I predicted, guys. I told you it would likely bounce off 54. We bounced off 53.63 at the low. It's now pumping even more in the after hours. Could it cool off a little? Yes, it could, but I think it's going to keep going for 58 very soon. We also formed a bullish divergence right here. So it could actually make its way back to about 60. That's where we have this resistance right here. It should slowly pump for at least 58. The dollar is a little up, but it's still pretty flat. It's not really doing too much, not telling us the market's like dead yet or the market's going to keep going. It's still pretty flat. Not too much to say about that, but there is a bullish divergence on the weekly that could play out later on. NEO is pumping in the after hours after it did sell off pretty hard. Still kind of sideways. We do have a potential crossover here on the MACD. I predict NEO is going to try to get back to about $8. If it breaks a little higher, could get closer to about 8.23, which is where the 50 EMA is on the hourly. I think NEO might end up doing that and then trade sideways from there. Now, if we're bearish on NEO, if it holds below $8, that's going to become pretty bearish. But for now, I predict NEO is going to try to bounce, then just trade sideways and close a little green. Microsoft, man, this thing is just going. It needs to cool off a little bit after this like crazy candle, but with earnings, you never know. It could just keep going. For Microsoft, we have resistance at 291. Break that, 295, then 300 become possible. If you're bearish, it's going to come all the way down to about this 200 184 level. If that fails, there's 282. Then finally 280 flat, followed by the 170s. What do I think it's going to do? Well, it's already up so big, might cool off a little bit, trade sideways from here. And then by tomorrow, as long as the earnings are decent and nothing too bad happens, it might just keep going for that 295 or higher, helping the market to pump. This is helping the QQQ definitely. It's all the way up closer to about 212 in the after hours, almost 213 actually. Sorry, 313. Sorry guys, almost 313. If we're bullish, expect a retest of the 50 EMA on the hourly time frame to go up to about 315 to 316. If we're bearish, watch a retest of 309. If that fails, it could come all the way down to 307, or if not lower. What do I think it's going to do? As long as Microsoft and Google hold up, which I believe they most likely will, we're likely going to see this thing continue to push and try to get back to about 311 or so. The VIX is up 11%. However, if it does actually, it actually closed below the 200 EMA. And there's also this gap below down here. Could the VIX come down to fill this gap first before it ends up bouncing, or is it just going to continue to drop? I'm not 100% sure, but my best estimate for the VIX is going to be that, excuse me, sorry guys. Depends on if we could hold the 50 EMA. If it does end up coming down all the way down to about 17.8, if that fails to hold, that's a very important support. It's going to fill the gap down here, and that's going to become bullish for the markets, or the markets are going to be bullish to cause that to happen. Nvda is down to 262. In my opinion, we're about to get a crossover on the MACD. We don't really have a divergence that formed, but I do believe there's potential for it to try to bounce because it is quite oversold right here on the hourly time frame. There's also a possible divergence, I believe. Let me just double check it. Actually, no, that's not actually a divergence, but it could still try to rebound because of how oversold it is. Not saying it's gonna like rally so hard. I just think it could try to rebound to the 50 EMA, retest 268 or so, maybe almost 270. I think it's very possible if we get the bounce. Aapl did not hold 165, super important level. If we're bullish on Aapl, we want to see this to get above 164 and then retest 165 around this 50 EMA, finally breaking to 166. If we're bearish, it's going to retest 163. If that fails, it's going to come all the way down to about 160 flats. And then we have a gap below in the 150s. I believe Apple's most likely going to try to bounce off after the news that came out. AMD looks pretty good. It has a falling wedge-like pattern. I was actually eyeing it. As long as it holds around these levels, it has the potential to get a rebound and retest the 50 EMA to get to 87. But if it's bearish, we're going to be watching $80 flat. Those are two of the most important levels. Excuse me, guys. But that's what I'm hoping for. Anyways, Alibaba could be bullish. I mean, I'm very concerned or like very apprehensive about the news involving China right now. Not too sure, but there's a good chance it might actually try to get a rebound because of the fact that it has a falling wedge. It's getting very tight. Meta looks bullish to me. However, as it's pushing up in the after hours, it's actually around 211. Could come down to about 210 and just continue to push for this 214 shop area. I don't know how earnings is going to go though, because remember they have earnings tomorrow. I think I forgot to mention this, guys. I'm sorry about that. Uh, yes, Microsoft and Alphabet have earnings, but then we have Meta and Roku for Wednesday after the market closes. For Thursday, we have Amazon. Expect the big reactions the next day. So tomorrow we have Meta earnings. It looks like it might try to pump approaching earnings. Who knows how they're going to do? Maybe they just keep going. If they're super bullish, I mean, could try to get back to 220 or higher. If we're bearish, then it's going to fail at 206 and just start crashing. Got to be one of those two. We'll have to wait and see. But for tomorrow, specifically before earnings comes out, there's a good chance it's going to retest this 214 area around here and then maybe get all the way up to about 217. The 10-year treasury yield is actually supporting some bullish momentum for the stock market because what I mentioned to you guys earlier was, hold on, we had this head and shoulders developing. This is a bullish signal for the market, which tells me the bonds market could cause a divergence and some risks to the upside. We failed to fill this gap above and we just rejected. We gapped down. If it breaks below this 33.78 area, it's going to come all the way down to fill this gap. The very high 32s maybe. If that's the case, that could be a bullish signal for the markets. But this is not like as impactful for the markets as something like the dollar index, and I think the VIX is more impactful than this, but this does give us a signal of what's likely to come in the bonds market and also for the stock market. As this thing pushes up, that tends to be bearish for the markets. As this comes down, the opposite. For now, it came down a bit, so that tends to be bullish for the stock market. We'll see if this actually does result in something bullish. All right, but anyways, just be very patient, guys. I just want to say I really appreciate every single one of you. I have some merch for you guys if you're interested around the comment section, so please check that out if you're interested. But anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And just know I'm anticipating a big move in either direction for the markets, but I am aiming and leaning more towards the upside. I think we're very oversold and we need to get a bounce. I think it's very likely it's going to happen tomorrow. That's just my prediction. Always watch the levels and just know that I find that very likely given how earnings are looking so far for Alphabet and Microsoft and the reaction to come. All right, thank you. Have a great day, guys. Don't forget about the Webull offer. The offer ends in just 7 hours. Thank you and peace out.